You showed those of us who knew Izzy a part about him that most people never knew that didn't know him, his erudition. He was an amazing man. Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm going to quote Izzy to start my little portion here. All governments lie, but disaster lies in wait for countries whose officials smoke the same hashish that they pass out to the public. In a nutshell, that was Izzy Stone's explanation for why he invested his own money and his own career to describe what was hidden behind the hash that the government was feeding the public. Through the post-war decades, Izzy remained a lone wolf trying to correct the record, the historic record of the times. And it was a period when world events were shaped by the conflicting interests of the United States and the Soviet Union, interests that collided not only in armed conflict, but in thought control propaganda that painted starkly different images of daily events, their meaning, and their importance. Robert Parry discovered Izzy when he was in high school in the 1960s and became hooked on Izzy's ability to challenge government claims about the war in Vietnam using documents that the government itself had produced but would not make public. When he went to Colby College in Maine, he lobbied the school library to subscribe to Stone's newsletter so that he and the other students would be able to have access to Izzy's research on his perspective of the war in Vietnam. Robert's own career in the establishment journalism began at the Associated Press and then at Newsweek. In both places, he was driven by an effort to follow Izzy's lead. It turned out to be a career of constant struggle to get his investigative pieces into the stories that would reach a public audience. At the AP, his reporting that disclosed cocaine trafficking by the Nicaragua Contras that were then supported by the CIA, he learned that his boss had been conferring on a regular basis with the government officials about his reporting, and he left the AP and joined Newsweek. Only to leave there when he was asked to kill a story by his editors who had been urged to do so by the National Security Agency. As a freelancer, Bob was able to find a few outlets for his digging through programs such as Frontline, with his documentaries like The October Surprise, based on a file labeled the X file in the Lyndon Johnson Library that others had overlooked. The file disclosed the evidence suppressed by Congress of Nixon's wiretapping of Lyndon during the 1968 campaign, of urging South Vietnamese officials to boycott President Lyndon Johnson's peace efforts, offering them a better deal if he were elected president. The collapse of the peace talks was an issue pounded on by Nixon and considered a key factor in Hubert Humphrey's campaign to succeed Lyndon Johnson. By 1995, Bob had grown tired of beating his head against a brick wall and decided he'd have to start his own organization to follow Izzy's lead to get his documentary evidence into print. Evidence of a troubling government activities that he knew to be increasingly available, but fewer and fewer of the established media outlets were interested in making them public. Following Izzy's lead, he found his own outlet of critical news, consortiumnews.com, the web home for important, deeply reported and documented stories that challenge the dominant mainstream news today. ConsortiumNews.com not only carries reporting by former FBI and CIA analysts who have worked and know how the hash is made to offset what Parry calls the perversion of journalism in the American press corps. His founding idea is dedicated to the simple principle that honesty of reporting is what the American people need of the events. Otherwise, this ignorance, he says, will remain not only a threat to a meaningful democratic republic, but a danger to the world as the last remaining superpower lurches about half blinded by its own propaganda. Despite all that's happened, despite the disasters in Iraq and Afghanistan, he says, many people still don't understand that the fight for honest information about the past and the present is really a battle for the future. I'd like to just say a word of thanks to Myra McPherson, a member of the committee who brought Bob's name to the committee's attention, to Anne Marie Lipinski, and I think the three of us agree that had the internet been around when Izzy was around, he would have been the first print journalist on the internet, and Bob would probably be working for him or competing against him. Bob, would you come so I can make this presentation to you? So, a 2015 recipient of the Izzy Stone Award.
Wow. It's a real medal.
Bill Redden.